I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. I remember looking in the mirror and just feeling defeated. They think I'm getting nauseous, the medication isn't working, or something's wrong. Not true. Most side effects are proof that the medication is working. For me, the nausea was worse in the weeks 2 and 3. But here's what people don't talk about enough. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2022 showed that people on the highest dose of tirzepatide lost an average of 22.5% of their body weight over 72 weeks. You know what's wild? There's a medication right now that literally hijacks the same hormone your body naturally makes after you eat a meal, and it's causing people to lose 30, 40, sometimes over 100 pounds without feeling like they're starving themselves. I'm talking about GLP-1 medications, semaglutide, tirzepatide, all of them. And if you're watching this, you probably either just started one of these medications, or you're thinking about it, or you know someone who's on it and you're just trying to figure out what the hype is all about. But here's the thing, most people taking these medications have no idea how they actually work. They just know, I take the shot, I feel less hungry, I lose weight, and look, that is totally fine. You don't need a biology degree to get results. But when you understand what's actually happening inside your body, you just make better decisions. You get better results and you stop freaking out when normal side effects happen. Hi, I'm Erin. Welcome to the Trim Talks. This is where we break down the real science behind weight loss, GLP-1 medications, and everything your doctor probably doesn't have time to explain in a 15-minute appointment. And before we dive into the science, I just want to be honest with you guys about something. 3 years ago, I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and I tried everything. I'm talking keto, intermittent fasting, counting macros, working out twice a day. I even did one of those crazy juice cleanses that left me miserable for a week. And you know what? I lost 10 pounds, feel great for a month, and then gained back 15. You know what I'm saying? Exhausting, mentally, physically, all of it. I remember looking in the mirror and just feeling defeated, like my body was working against me no matter what I did. Then about 2 years ago, I started GLP-1 medications. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I thought it was cheating. Like real weight loss had to be hard, right? It had to be suffering through hunger and willpower, all that. But the more I researched, the more I realized this isn't about cheating. It's about working with your biology instead of fighting it. So I talked to my doctor, I started on semaglutide, and everything just changed for me. Not overnight, not magically, but consistently. The constant hunger, gone. The obsession with food, quiet. The yo-yo cycle finally broken. So for the next 30 minutes, I'm gonna break down exactly how GLP-1 medications work in your body, not the boring textbook version, the real version. What's happening in your stomach, your brain, your pancreas, your liver, why you feel full after 3 bites, why some people get nauseous, why the weight actually comes off, and most importantly, what you can do to work with the medication instead of against it. If you stick with me till the end, you're gonna understand your body better than most doctors can explain it. So let's get into it. What is GLP-1, the natural hormone? Before we talk about the medication, we need to talk about the hormone your body already makes, because GLP-1 isn't some synthetic chemical invented in a lab. It's a copy of something your body already produces naturally every single time you eat. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. I know, a terrible name, but here's what it actually does. The moment the food hits your small intestines, cells in your gut start to release this hormone into your bloodstream. It's like the messenger that travels around your body saying, hey, we just ate. Here's what needs to happen now. And this is where it gets interesting. GLP-1 does about 6 different things all at once. Let me break them down. First, it tells your pancreas to release insulin. Insulin is the hormone that makes sugar from your blood and pushes it into your cells, where you can actually use it for energy. Without insulin, sugar just sits in your bloodstream doing damage. That's diabetes. So GLP-1 is basically your body's way of managing blood sugar after a meal. Second, it tells your pancreas to stop making glucagon. Glucagon is the opposite of insulin. It tells your liver to dump stored sugar into your blood. You need glucagon when you haven't eaten in a while and your blood sugar drops. But right after a meal, you definitely don't need more sugar floating around. So GLP-1 shuts that down. Third, it's the big one for the weight loss. It slows down how fast your food leaves your stomach. Normally you eat, your stomach grinds up the food and pushes it into your intestines pretty quickly, maybe an hour or two. But when GLP-1 is active, that whole process slows way down. Food sits in your stomach longer, and when your stomach is full, you feel full. That's why you're not hungry an hour after eating. Fourth, it goes straight to your brain. Specifically, it hits receptors in your hypothalamus. That's the part of your brain that controls appetite and hunger. GLP-1 basically tells your brain, we're good on food. Stop looking for more. It literally reduces your appetite at the brain level. Fifth, it affects your reward system. You know how some foods just hit different, like pizza or ice cream or whatever this is? That's your brain's reward center lighting up. GLP-1 dampens that. It doesn't make food taste bad, but it makes you less obsessed with it. You can take it or leave it. And sixth, it reduces inflammation throughout your body. We're still learning about this one, but research is showing that GLP-1 has effects beyond blood sugar and appetite. It seems to help with heart health, liver health, even brain health. Now here's the problem. Natural GLP-1 only lasts in your body for about 2 to 3 minutes. Your body breaks it down almost immediately. So you get this burst of effects after a meal and then it's gone, which is fine for normal eating, but it's not enough to cause significant weight loss or manage diabetes long term. That's where the medication comes in. How GLP-1 medications are different. So if natural GLP-1 only lasts for a few minutes, how does the medication work? For days or even a week? Great question. This is where the science gets really clever. Scientists took the natural GLP-1 hormone and made a few tiny changes to its structure. They didn't change what it does, they changed how long it lasts. Think of it like a regular candle that burns out in an hour and turning it into one that burns for a week. Same flame, just lasts way longer. Semaglutide, which is the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, lasts about 7 days in your body. That's why you only inject it once a week. Tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro and Zepbound, lasts about a week too. Some of the older GLP-1 medications like araglutide only last about 13 to 15 hours, so you have to inject those daily. The longer these medications stay in your system, the more consistent the effects are. With a natural GLP-1, it gets spikes after meals and then nothing. With GLP-1 medications, you have steady levels all day, every day. Your appetite is consistently lower, your stomach empties slowly all the time, your brain is getting that we're full signal constantly. And here's what most people don't realize. These medications don't just mimic one thing. They're hitting all 6 of these effects I mentioned earlier. Blood sugar control, reduced glucagon, slower stomach emptying, appetite suppression in the brain, reduced food reward, anti-inflammatory effects, all of it, all at once for days. That's why people lose weight so consistently. It's not just, oh, I'm less hungry. It's a full system reset of how your body's handling food and energy. And I can tell you from personal experience, when I started on semaglutide, the difference between day 1 and 7 days was night and day. By the end of the first week, I wasn't thinking about food every 2 hours. I wasn't planning my meal the whole day, thinking about what I'm gonna eat. It was just quiet up there. And that was the first time in years I felt like I had control instead of food having control over me. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually inject one of these medications. Where does it go? What is it doing in real time? Because this is where it gets pretty practical. First, the medication sits under your skin in what's called the subcutaneous tissue. That's the layer of the fat right under your skin. From there, it slowly absorbs into your bloodstream. This isn't instant. It takes a few hours for the medication to really start circulating through your body. With semaglutide, you'll start noticing effects within a day or two. With tirzepatide, it's about the same. But the full effect, like the peak concentration in your blood, doesn't happen till about 3 days after your injection. That's when it's working the hardest. Once it's in your bloodstream, it travels everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, it's going in your brain, your stomach, your pancreas, your liver, your fat cells, all those. GLP-1 receptors throughout your body light up and start responding. Let's start with your stomach. This is where most people notice the effect first. The medication tells your stomach to slow down. Specifically, it relaxes the muscles that push food from your stomach into your intestines. So instead of your stomach emptying in an hour or two, it might be like 3 or 4 hours, or depending on what you ate. This is why so many people say, I ate 3 bites and I'm stuffed. You're not imagining it. Your stomach is legitimately holding on to food longer. And when your stomach is physically full, stretch receptors in the stomach wall send signals to your brain saying, we're full, stop eating. But here's where it gets tricky. If you eat too much too fast, your stomach doesn't have anywhere to put it. Everything backs up, you feel bloated, uncomfortable, nauseous. That's not the medication being bad. That's you overriding the signal your body is sending. And I learned this the hard way. My second week on semaglutide, I went out to dinner with friends. Everyone ordered appetizers. I got my usual pasta dish, and I kept eating like I normally would eat. Big mistake. Very big mistake. Halfway through the meal, I felt like I was gonna explode. I had to excuse myself and just sit in the bathroom feeling miserable for like 20 minutes. That's when it clicked. My body was telling me to stop, and I just wasn't listening to it. Next, the brain. The medication crosses something called the blood-brain barrier and binds to GLP-1 receptors in your hypothalamus. This is the appetite control center. When those receptors light up, your brain interprets it as, we have enough energy, we don't need more food right now. And this isn't just physical fullness, this is mental hunger. You know that feeling when you're hungry, but you just ate an hour ago and you shouldn't be hungry? That's mental hunger. That's your brain wanting food even though your body doesn't need it. GLP-1 medications shut all that down. People describe it as food noise. People describe it as food noise going away, like they're not constantly thinking about their next meal. They're not obsessing over snacks. Food is just neutral. That's the brain effect. Now the pancreas. This is huge for people with diabetes, but it matters for weight loss too. The medications tell your pancreas to release insulin, but only when your blood sugar is high. This is important. It's not constantly flooding your system with insulin. It's smart insulin release. When you eat and your blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up to match. When you're not eating and your blood sugar is normal, insulin stays normal. This prevents something called reactive hypoglycemia, which is when your blood sugar crashes after eating because too much insulin was released. Older diabetes medications did that all the time. GLP-1 medications don't. They're much more precise. The medication also tells your pancreas to stop releasing glucagon. Remember, glucagon tells your liver to dump sugar into your blood. You don't need that after a meal. So the medication keeps your blood sugar stable by blocking glucagon release. Now here's something cool that happens in your liver. The medication seems to reduce fat accumulation in the liver. A lot of people with obesity have something called fatty liver disease, which is exactly what it sounds like. Too much stored fat in the liver. Over time, this causes inflammation and damage. GLP-1 medications help reduce that fat. We're still studying exactly how, but the results are clear. Liver health improves. And finally, your fat cells. This is where the long-term magic happens. The medication doesn't directly burn fat. Let me say that again, GLP-1 medications do not directly burn fat. What they do is make it way easier for you to eat less, and when you eat less consistently for weeks and months, your body starts pulling energy from stored fat. That's where the weight loss comes from. But there is more to it. The medication also seems to help your body use fat for energy more efficiently. It improves something called insulin sensitivity, which means your cells respond better to insulin and pull energy from your blood instead of just storing everything as fat. After you inject the medication, absorbs into your blood over a few hours, it peaks in about 3 days. It slows your stomach, it suppresses appetite in your brain, it manages your blood sugar through your pancreas, it protects your liver, and it helps your body access stored fat for energy. That's a lot happening from one little injection. Why people get side effects? Okay, let's talk about side effects, because this is where a lot of people get confused. They think I'm getting nauseous, the medication isn't working, or I feel terrible, or something's wrong. Not true. Most side effects are proof that the medication is working. You just need to understand why they happen so you can work with them and not against them. The most common side effect is nausea. And now that you know how the medication works, this makes perfect sense. Your stomach is emptying slower. Food is sitting there longer. If you eat too much or eat too fast, your stomach literally doesn't have room to process it. Everything backs up, you feel nauseous. This is especially common in the first few weeks or when you increase your dose. Your body hasn't adapted to it yet. You're still eating like you used to, and your stomach is like, whoa, slow down. I can't handle this right now. The fix is simple. Eat smaller portions, eat slower, and avoid foods that are really heavy or greasy because those take even longer to digest. For me, the nausea was worse in the weeks 2 and 3. I'd wake up feeling a little queasy, and if I pushed myself to eat a big breakfast, it would last like all day long. So I switched to lighter meals, Greek yogurt with berries instead of eggs and bacon, smaller dinners, and I stopped eating past 7 p.m. because laying down with a full stomach was a guaranteed recipe for feeling awful. Next, constipation. Unfortunately, super common. And again, it's because everything is moving slower. Food sits in your stomach longer, then it moves through your intestines slower. If you're not drinking enough water and eating enough fiber, things get really backed up. A study showed in 2022, they found that slower gastric emptying can reduce bowel movement frequency in people taking GLP-1 medications. The solution? Water, fiber, movement, walk more, drink more, eat vegetables. Just, boring advice. I know, but it works. Some people get heartburn or acid reflux. This is because the food is sitting in your stomach longer, and stomach acid is sitting there with it. If you already have reflux issues, GLP-1 medications can make them really worse. The fix? Do not eat right before bed. Avoid trigger foods like caffeine, alcohol, spicy foods. And talk to your doctor about an antacid if it's really bad. Diarrhea happens to some people usually in the first few weeks. This is your gut adjusting to the medication, and it usually goes away on its own. But if it doesn't, you might need to adjust what you're eating. And then there's fatigue. A lot of people feel more tired when they first start. Part of it is because you're eating way less. Fewer calories means less energy. But part of it is also your body adjusting to lower blood sugar levels. If you've been running high blood sugars for years, even normal blood sugars feels low at first. Your body adapts after a few weeks. Now here's what's interesting. Most of these side effects go away or way better after the first month. Your stomach adapts, your gut bacteria adjust, your energy levels stabilize, but only if you're working with the medication. If you keep eating the same like you did before, fighting the fullness signals, the side effects do stick around. One more thing, some people don't get any side effects at all, and they think, is it even working? Yes, it's working. Not everyone gets nauseous, not everyone gets constipated. If you're losing weight and your appetite is lower, it's working. You don't need to feel terrible to have it be effective. The weight loss mechanism. All right, let's get to the part everyone cares about. How does this actually make you lose weight? Because here's the truth. The medication doesn't burn fat. It doesn't speed up your metabolism. It doesn't magically melt pounds off your body. What it does is it makes it dramatically easier to eat less food. And when you eat less food consistently over time, you lose weight. That's it. That's the whole mechanism. But let's break it down why it works so well compared to just trying to eat less on your own. When you try to diet with medications, here's what happens. You cut calories, your stomach is empty more often, ghrelin levels go up. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It's literally screaming at your brain, eat something, you're starving. Your leptin levels, which signals fullness, drop. So you're hunger and less satisfied when you do eat. On top of that, your metabolism slows down to conserve energy. Your body thinks something's happening. It holds on to every calorie it can, and mentally, you're obsessed with food. You're thinking about it constantly. Food commercial hit different. You're white knuckling it through every meal. That's why most diets fail. Not because people lack willpower, because your biology is actively fighting you. I lived with this for years. I'd start a new diet on Monday, full of motivation. By Wednesday, I would be fantasizing about pizza. By Friday, I would convince myself one cheat meal won't hurt. And by Sunday, I was back to eating like I never started. It wasn't that I was weak. My body was literally fighting me every step of the way. Now, here's what happens on a GLP-1 medication. You eat less, but your hunger hormone stays stable. It doesn't spike because the medication is suppressing appetite at the brain level. You feel full on less food because your stomach is slow. A major study in the New England Journal on Medicine in 2021, the Step 1 trial, showed that people on semaglutide lost an average of 15% of their body weight over 68 weeks. That's substantial. And importantly, most of the weight loss was fat, not muscle, especially when people combine the medication with protein intake and exercise. But here's what people don't talk about enough. The weight loss isn't linear. In the first month, you might lose 8 to 10 pounds. A lot of that is water weight and inflammation going down. Then in month 2 and 3, it slows to maybe 1 to 2 pounds per week. Some weeks you don't lose anything. Some weeks you lose 3 pounds. It's not smooth. And this freaks people out. You think it stopped working. It didn't. Your body is just adjusting, and you lose weight, your calorie needs drop, a smaller body needs fewer calories. So the rate of weight loss naturally slows over time. And this is normal. This is what's expected. And this is why you just can't rely on medication alone. You have to support it with good nutrition, movement, hydration, all the stuff that actually matters. And here's another thing. The medication works best when you're in a moderate calorie deficit. In a huge one, not a huge one, moderate. If you're eating like 800 calories a day because you're never hungry, that's too low. Your body will slow your metabolism. You'll lose muscle, and when you eventually stop the medication, you'll gain everything back and then some. The sweet spot for most people is eating about 500 to 700 calories below their maintenance level. That creates about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of fat loss per week, which is sustainable and healthy. It's the thing nobody wants to hear. You have to track what you're eating, at least at first, because most people on GLP-1 medications have no idea how little they're actually eating. They think, I had one normal day, but they ate 900 calories. That's not enough. You need protein, you need nutrients, you need energy to live your life. So the medication creates the calorie deficit by reducing appetite, but you have to make sure that deficit isn't too big and that the food you're eating is high quality. That's how you lose fat, keep muscle, and actually feel good while doing it. One more important point. The medication also helps preserve weight loss. Even after you lose the weight, GLP-1 helps keep it off because it continues to suppress appetite and reduce the food noise. This is really huge. Most people who lose weight gain it back within a year. With GLP-1 medications, the regain rate is much lower, at least while you're still on the medication. Which brings up the question everyone asks, do you have to stay on it forever? Well, We're going to get to that in a minute. Semaglutide versus tirzepatide. So you might be wondering what's the difference between semaglutide and tirzepatide. Are they basically the same thing? Not quite, but they're similar. But here are some key differences that might matter for you. Semaglutide is a pure GLP-1 agonist. That means it only activates GLP-1 receptors. It does all the stuff that we've been talking about, slows the stomach, suppresses the appetite, manages blood sugar, but it's been around longer, so we have more long-term data on it. Tirzepatide is a dual agonist. It activates both GLP-1 receptors and GIP receptors. GIP stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. Another terrible name, but here's what it does. GIP also helps regulate blood sugar and insulin. But more importantly, for weight loss, it seems to affect how your body stores and burns fat. The combination of GLP-1 and GIP seems to be more effective for weight loss than GLP-1 alone. In head-to-head studies, tirzepatide leads to slightly more weight loss than semaglutide. We're talking about an average of 20 to 22% body weight loss with tirzepatide compared to 15 to 17% with semaglutide in clinical trials. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2022, the SURMOUNT-1 trial showed that people on the highest dose of tirzepatide lost an average of 22.5% of their body weight over 72 weeks. That's significant. But here's the catch. Tirzepatide also tends to have slightly more side effects, especially nausea and vomiting in the first few weeks. Not everyone, but it's more common. Some people tolerate semaglutide better. So which one is good for you? You have to choose. Honestly, it depends if you're someone who really is sensitive to side effects. Semaglutide might be better for you. If you want the maximum possible weight loss and you can handle a rougher adjustment period, tirzepatide might be the move. Here's the good news. They both work. They're both effective. And for most people, the difference isn't huge. It's like asking, should I drive a Honda or a Toyota? Either way, you're getting from point A to point B. One might be slightly more fuel efficient, one might have a smoother ride, but both are solid choices. I started on the semaglutide because it had been around longer and it has something with more long-term data, and it worked great for me. Lost the 40 pounds, felt good, minimal side effects the first month, but I do have a few friends who tried semaglutide and it didn't click for them. They switched to tirzepatide and they had way better results. Everyone's body is different. Also, cost and availability matters. Semaglutide has been on the market longer, so there are sometimes more options for getting it. Tirzepatide is newer, so it can be harder to find or more expensive depending on your situation. And here's something interesting. Some doctors are starting to use both in combination, like a low dose of semaglutide plus a low dose of tirzepatide. The theory is that you get the benefits of both with fewer side effects because neither dose is like maxed out. The research on this is still early, but it's something to keep an eye out for. One more thing, both medications come in different doses. Semaglutide comes from 0.25 mg to 2.4 mg. Tirzepatide goes from 2.5 mg to 15 mg. You always start low and increase gradually. This lets your body adjust and minimize side effects. If you start at the lowest dose, you're not seeing the results after a month. But don't panic, you're probably not at your effective dose yet. Most people need to, titrate up over several months to find the dose that works for them. And sometimes the first dose you do try isn't the right one for you. Maybe semaglutide doesn't work, but tirzepatide does, or vice versa. Everyone's body is different. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. The most common long-term issue is ongoing nausea or digestive problems, which usually means the dose just needs to be adjusted. There's also been some concern about the thyroid issue. In animal studies, high doses of GLP-1 agonists increase the risk of thyroid tumors. But in humans, we haven't seen that same risk. Still, if you have personal or family history of thyroid cancer, you should talk to your doctor before starting. There's also something called gallbladder issue. Rapid weight loss from any method increases the risk of gallstones. GLP-1 medications can contribute to that because you're losing weight quickly. If you start having pain in your lower abdomen, right abdomen, especially after eating, get it checked out. And then there's the muscle loss concern. If you're losing weight really fast and not eating enough protein or doing any resistant training, you'll lose muscle along with fat. Over time, that could be a problem. Muscle is important for metabolism, for strength, for aging well. So even though the medications make it easy to not eat much, you have to force yourself to eat enough protein and move your body. You have to force yourself to eat enough protein and move your body. One more thing, we don't know what happens if you stay on these medications for 20 to 30 years because they haven't been used for weight loss that long. So there's some unknown risk there. But to compare it to the known risk of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, joint problems, most doctors agree the benefits outweigh the risk. And honestly, most people don't stay on these medications forever. They use them for a year or two, they lose the weight, and then either maintain on a lower dose or transition off. Life changes, change goals. Life changes, goals change. Bodies change. There's no one right way to do this. The key is going into it with realistic expectations. This is not a quick fix. This is not a magic pill. It's a tool, a real effective tool, but it works best combined with good habits, support, and a long-term mindset. All right, we've covered a lot. Let's bring it all together. GLP-1 medications work by mimicking a hormone your body naturally makes. They lower your stomach, they suppress your appetite in your brain, they manage blood sugar through your pancreas, they reduce inflammation, and they make it easier to eat less food constantly, which is how you lose the weight. The side effects, nausea, constipation, fatigue, they're mostly temporary and they're signs the medication is working. They get better as your body adjusts, and you can minimize them by eating smaller meals, drinking more water, and not fighting the fullness signals. Semaglutide and tirzepatide are both effective. Tirzepatide might give slightly better results, but with slightly more side effects. Either way, you're starting low and increasing gradually to find your effective dose. And long term, some people stay on it, some people transition off. Weight regain is common if you stop, but that's true for any weight loss method. The medication gives you a tool to manage a chronic condition. Here's what I want you to take away from this. These medications are not cheating. They're not the easy way out. They're a medical invention for medical problem, and they work really well. But they work best when you understand what's happening in your body and you support the medication with good nutrition, movement, hydration, and realistic expectations. If you're on a GLP-1 medication right now, use this knowledge. Don't just coast on the medication, maximize it. Eat enough protein, drink enough water, move your body, track your food for a few weeks to see what's actually happening, work with your doctor to find the right dose, and be patient. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're thinking about starting, talk to your doctor, see if you're a good candidate, understand the benefits and the risk, and go with it with a plan, not just a hope. If you need help getting started or want a program that makes this whole process easier, check out TrimX. They're a telehealth service that connects you with licensed clinicians who can prescribe GLP-1 medications and ship them straight to your door. No insurance hassle, no waiting rooms, just personalized support and medication delivered to you. They can even adjust your dose anytime for free. I wish I knew something like TrimX existed when I first started. It would have saved me so much time and stress to navigate the whole process on my own. If this video helped you understand how these medications work, save it, share it with someone who's on this journey or thinking about starting. And if you want more content like this, hit subscribe to the Trim Talks. We're here to give you the real information, not the hype. This is all just facts. Now you know that GLP-1 medication works. Go use that knowledge, make better decisions, get better results, and take control of your health. Let's go.